Hey everyone, thanks for joining this second Ignition Hackathon live stream. Today I have Guillaume and Daniel from Figment Learn who are going to walk you through some of the great Solana tutorials that they've built and their new website that they've been crafting over the past few months. Take it away, you guys.
Hey everyone, my name is Guillaume. I'm a product manager at Figment, which is a Web3 infrastructure company that does staking as a service and building a bunch of developer tools around Web3 and around proof of stake protocols, including Solana. Daniel, do you want to introduce yourself quickly, Daniel?
Yeah, hey guys, I'm an engineer at Figment. Work with Guillaume as well, building the whole Learn experience for all you guys.
And so Figment does a lot of things around Web3, including some like infrastructure, some staking as a service, some like Explore products. And one of those products that we are working on is aimed at developers, and it's called Learn, or Figment Learn. And we're trying to build an educational platform to help Web2 developers like me, like Daniel, like tens of millions of Web2 developers in the world, trying to help them on board on Web3. And it can be a super it can be really hard and disorienting at first. The mental models are so different, and there's like a million different protocols, and their docs are a little bit esoteric. And what we try and do is build the simplest and most powerful like educational experiences to try and help you go from like, I'm an intermediate, advanced, experienced Web2 developer, and I'm curious about Web3, but I don't really know where to start. And one of those products that we have been now working on for the past like 6 months are called pathways. And they're basically just courses that take you from 0 to 1 on any of the, I think, 8 protocols that we're supporting right now. We have Polygon, Avalanche, Near, we have like 8 of them, and including Solana, which is actually our most like successful one. And the idea with this pathway is, and we're gonna do a demo. We're gonna spend like maybe 10, 15 minutes going through it together. And I'm going to be showing my screen. I'm going to be going through it like you guys would if you started from scratch. And the idea with those is we want to introduce the mental models of Web3 and of Solana in a way that is easy for a Web2 dev to understand. So the container of this sort of educational experience is the Next.js app. And a lot of you know React, a lot of you know Next.js. You've written JavaScript and TypeScript, so you should be comfortable. Those are basically the only requirements. And we've written like maybe 90% of the code. And the last 10%, the last mile, the last thing that basically bridges the gap between Web2 and Web3, it's up to you to write it. And I think there's 9 steps right now in this pathway. It starts with simply connecting to a node, to then creating a key pair or an account, funding that account using a faucet, which is another like very Web3 like primitive, etc., until deploying a smart contract in Rust and using the UI to interact with it. And then at the end, all those interactions you've done are visible on the blockchain through the Solana Explorer. Every transaction that you've made from the deployment of the program. Program, by the way, is like a smart contract. In Solidity and Ethereum world, we say smart contract. In Solana, they say program. So everything is visible on the Blockchain Explorer, from deploying the smart contract to any interaction you have with the program. So we're going to do a demo. Let's just jump right in the demo, I think. Let me share my screen. And Google Chrome. Actually, maybe before I jump into the demo, let me just show real quick what Figment Learn is. This is the homepage. We are basically sort of gateway to learn about all those protocols. Avalanche, Cosmos, Celo, you sort of name it. We have the most popular ones. And I think Solana is actually, I know Solana is the most popular one. We have you have this page here, which will, and we're going to go through the pathway in a second. And we've also created a list of resources to sort of start going with Solana if you're not sure start. Sometimes just going on Solana devs is going to be the best way, but for some people it's a little bit esoteric. It's a little bit hard to just start with like developer documentation. And so we're trying to really curate from just the whole web, what we think are the best resources to start. So there's some things from the Solana docs, and also some things from Ledger, which has a great introduction, or Medium, or some other people who've written some great stuff, and then some tutorials, and we'll talk more about tutorials later. But first, let's actually talk about the pathway. So those are the steps. We're just going to click here to get started on the introduction. I'm not going to go through the whole intro. It's sort of explaining what the basics of Solana are. So I'll let you guys have a look at this. And setting up the project. I've already cloned it, and I've already set up the end because I just wanted to go a little bit faster, but this is very easy. You just have to follow the prompts and the commands. And so I think that I'm actually going to stop sharing Chrome. I'm going to share my whole screen so I can switch between Chrome and my terminal. So here I have the app, which is, if I go back up here, it's actually this app here. So it's hosted on GitHub. It's this app called Learn Web3 dApp. You can git clone it, and you can yarn, and then yarn dev, and then you'll get on this homepage. Those are the pathways that we have, and Solana is the one we're going to be doing today. So this is what you see when you arrive here. And you can see you have the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you have 9 steps. We're going to start with the first one, obviously. And the first one is telling you you're not connected with Solana. So let's click on the view instructions. This is going to open the instructions for that step. There's a little bit of text here explaining sort of what the Solana blockchain is. We're going to be using throughout this pathway, this NPM library called Web3.js, and it's Solana wrote it. It's basically a wrapper around the API of Solana written in TypeScript. So it's really like just any other NPM component. You install it using NPM or Yarn, and then boom, you have access to all the Solana RPC methods, but basically just with JavaScript objects that you can call functions on. This is the repo. Again, I already opened it. There are 2 parts where you have to look. In components, you'll have Solana components, which are here, and all the steps. And then if you're familiar with Next.js, you know that Next.js also gives you the ability to have API routes. And those are usually under pages and API. And then you'll go in Solana, and here you go. So we're basically going to be going back and forth between those 2. At the top, it's going to be the client-side components. And at the bottom here, inside pages API, is going to be those Express.js functions, serverless functions that you can run on the node server, okay? The first challenge is to connect to Solana, to a Solana node. So we're going to go in pages API Solana connects.js, which is here, and we see that there's a bunch of errors. And those errors are TypeScript errors because we haven't implemented those objects. They're still undefined, and that's on purpose. It's going to be your job to actually fill this in. The first 2, 3 steps, I'm going to do them with you guys. You can watch me, and then we'll stop. And the last 6 steps, you guys can do it on your own time. So let's start with this one. This is the piece of code that we have to update, and we're giving you some hints. You can look at this one, creating a connection instance. So let's see how Solana explains. It's a constructor, it's a class, and you have to pass an endpoint. We've already written what the endpoint is for you, so you didn't have to. Basically, I can just do review connection, use the URL, whoop, and then here we go. I have my connection object. Now I have to use my connection object. If I click on, I'm already on a connection, so I can look at all the functions that are here, and there's one called getVersion. GetVersion is simply an asynchronous function that returns a promise. So we're going to write await, because that's how we deal with asynchronous JavaScript, and then we're going to use our connection object, and we're going to, I think if I do dot, yeah, getVersion is already there. I'm not sure why, probably because Visual Studio is just super smart and it knows that I want to use getVersion, but here we go. And by the way, if you do dot, you can look at all the other functions that are available on this connection object. If I type get ver, boom, here we go, getVersion. And it's a function, so I have to call, I have to add the brackets. So let's save this and then go back in the pathway page, the one where it said not connected to Solana. And then we're going to open the network tab so we can see a little bit what's going on. And I'm going to refresh this page. And while we refresh this page, we see that it's making a request to connect. which is basically going to go straight to pages API/connect. If you look at the headers here, you can see it's going to API Solana Connect. So that's going to be routed by Next.js straight to Connect.js. We're not passing anything here. And in the response, we see that we get 1.7.10, which is what we're sending back, the version that we're sending back to the UI, to the client side. And here we go, boom, it's actually connected now. If you actually go in the UI within Solana, components, step, and accounts, you'll see that this is the call we're making. We're using Axios to make a call to to connect. I was on the wrong step. We're using Axios to make a call to API Solana Connect. And upon success, AKA when the promise is fulfilled, we parse the response, get the version, set the version in the React state, and then somehow in the rendering logic, we're going to actually, if it's not fetching and if we have a version, we're going to render an alert. This is using ND. We're not going to go into details. You can do it on time. Connect to Solana, and we're going to show the version. And this is what's going on here. So this is the first step. At this point, we have a connection object, and this is going to be the JavaScript object we're going to use to do every interaction with Solana. Okay, so let's keep going to the second one. And we're going to go a little bit deeper in the rabbit hole. So I'm going to hit next step. And now we're going to create an account or a key pair. A key pair is the data structure that sits behind an account. And it's made of a public key and a private key. And we're going to talk about this. So if I click on generate key pair, nothing's going on. There's actually an error because we have to first implement this function. It's not implemented as is. So create a key pair. We're explaining what a key pair is. Basically, it's just what I explained. It has a public key, which is an address, which is something you can share. It's basically like your username in Web2 world. And it has a secret key. And the secret key is something you don't want to share. It's more like your password. And in the same way that like a user account, when you want to log in Web2, you have to use usually your username or an email and a password. It's the same thing, public key, secret key. Really, I think it's a pretty good metaphor to sort of like translate Web2 into Web3 or vice versa. So let's actually go through this challenge again, the same way we did for the previous one. So I'm going to go back in Visual Studio. I'm going to close those two, connect and connect UI. I'm going to open key pair, which is the file here that we're supposed to change. And we're going to implement the key pair function. We need to create a key pair. From this key pair, we need to extract the address, and then we need to send those two back to the UI so that we can display on the UI the address. So I think here we have a bunch of tips. Yeah, same thing as the first step. Here's a link to connecting, to generating a key pair. So the Solana docs are telling us that to create a key pair, we have a constructor. So I'm going to use this constructor. I'm going to say new key pair. Cool. So now it seems like I have a key pair. I can hover it on Visual Studio, and it's telling me that, by the way, there's a TypeScript definition, which is going to be super useful. And then this next thing I need to do is extract the address from the key pair. If I scroll down a little bit, I see that on this key pair, there's an accessor to get the public key. So I'm just going to call my key pair. I'm going to call this accessor, and I don't need to use brackets because this is not a method. It's an accessor. So it's more like a property. Methods are under, and those would actually need to use the brackets. Don't be fooled by the fact that you actually see a bracket here. You shouldn't use it. If you do, my guess is TypeScript is going to yell at you. If I hover, it's saying this expression is not callable because it is a get accessor. Did you mean to use it without the brackets? So boom, I'm removing it. And then once I have my address, it's not over. And that's a super important thing in Web3. The public key and the address are not exactly the same. The public key, if I hover over it, it's going to be a public key type, which if I click on this, I don't know if there's a lot of information here, but it's sort of, the value is like a buffer. So it's sort of not a string representation. And we're not going to go into detail about like what it is exactly, but think of it as like a long, long list of numbers, which as is sort of like really hard to decipher. So actually, one thing I can do, this was not planned, but let's sort of like improvise a little bit. I'm going to console log the key pair. And then underneath, I'm going to console log the key pair public key. Okay. And then once we've extracted the address, I'm going to console log the address. This is going to help us understand the differences between all those three things. If I look at the public key, from the public key, I can get the actual address by using the toString function, this guy here. Let me click on this, and it's as easy as calling toString. And this is, if you scroll up, this is a method. So we actually have to use the brackets here. So I'm going to do toString. This is going to be my address, and I'm going to console log it. Those three console logs are in the Node.js side. So they're going to be not in the console of my browser. They're going to be in the terminal. Super important. Okay, so I saved this.
Hey, Guillaume, on line 17, I think you need to console log address, just the variable.
Yes.
That way they can actually see the
yeah, absolutely. Cool. Yeah, good call. Thanks, man. Okay, so I cleared the terminal. Good call. I'm going to put this on the left. I'm going to put this on the right. I'm going to clear this. Sorry, a little bit of screen gymnastics. This, I don't need a lot of space. Okay, cool. So we've implemented this, and I'm going to refresh just to make sure everything is, we're not using stale code, and I'm going to call generate key pair. Okay, it worked. So we have three things. We have the key pair object, which has a public key and a secret key. We've just talked about this. Then we have the public key, which is sort of when you do key pair dot public key, and you can see it's like a BN. BN means big number, and we're not going to go into like cryptographic, details, but basically the way this public key and the private key is generated is through this like ellipsis algorithm, and it's basically just trying to find a unique number among a huge domain space. And big numbers are not natively supported by JavaScript, so we need to use the library to actually convert it to a string, and then we actually get this address. So it's sort of like a distillation. You have key pair, then you distill it to a public key, and then you distill the public key to an address. And the address is like your email, like your username, or even like your mailing address. It's something that you can share to everybody to say, hey, you can reach me at this address. And by the way, here now you can see the key pair was generated. It's a string representation of the public key. We just explained that. And it's accessible and copyable at the top right of the page. So if you click on storage, we've created this little React state that tells you you're on DevNet. This is your address. We sort of like created like a little ellipsis in the middle, and you can see the secret. Cool. By the way, Daniel, let me know if there's any, because I don't see the chat, but if there are any questions about the step, we can like just pause and talk about it. We don't have to wait to the end to do an AMA. So let me know. Okay, so at this point, we've used the connection to create with the Solana node, and we've created an account. By the way, not even using this connection, the creating an account is totally local. There's no network request, or at least there's no network request to the Solana node. It's something that can be done completely locally. And so now we have an account, and we can start like doing a little bit more fun stuff. So let's click next step. Paste the address you generated to fund your account. We're right now on DevNet, which means that the tokens you're going to be getting are like fake tokens. It would be too fun if you could just like use the faucet to get real tokens. Those tokens don't have any value in terms of being able to transfer them to like US dollars. They only exist as like a fake currency on a simulation of the real Solana mainnets. There's mainnet, and then there's DevNet for devs to be able to just have fun. So I'm going to go in storage. I'm going to hover on the address, and I'm going to paste it here. And my guess is if I do this, the address is funded. And so why is it funded? Let's go and see the code that actually does this. Oh no, actually it shouldn't be funded. So maybe you heard a little bug. Okay, so let's click on this step to try and understand what we need to do to make this work. We still have the node URL, we still have our connection, and we have an address. And what we got to do is then we have to get the public key, get the hash, and that's the way we can actually use this function called request airdrop. So this one, I'm going to go a little bit faster, but basically from the address, earlier we actually went from the public key to the address by using toString. This time we're going to do the opposite. From the address, we're going to like go the other way and get the public key. So I'm going to do this. And then we're going to use the connection and the request airdrop on this connection. And we're going to say, I'm requesting an airdrop of free tokens to this public address. And then we're going to talk about this function, this constant in a second. Okay, so lamperts per sol is, okay, so lamperts are basically a unit of sol. So the same way you have like $1 is 100 cents. One Solana is, I think, 10 to the power 9 or 19. Oof, I don't know. Daniel, do you know this actually? How many lamperts are in a sol?
I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay, well, me neither. Oh, wait, it was here. Second one, terminology. If you Google this, lampert. Okay, a fractional native token with a value of 123. So it's a billionth of a sol, 10 to the power minus 9. Okay, and it's sort of the unit in which you're going to actually do commerce on, right? The same way, if any of you have built anything on Ethereum, usually you can use Ways instead of Ethers, especially when Ethers is like, $4,000 or $3,500. Like right now, it's annoying to always be like working with fractions of Ether. So instead of working with fractions of Ether, we work with like thousands or millions of Ways, and it's exactly the same with lamperts. So now that we have our hash, we're gonna confirm the transaction. So because this is building sort of like a raw transaction, and we have to actually confirm it using this hash. And then once it's confirmed, we send the hash to the UI. And so let's see what happens when we do this. So I'm going to refresh. I'm going to use this address again. Storage, boom, 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 fund. Okay, so now the address is funded, but earlier we didn't have the Solana Explorer because the call actually didn't work. But now if we click on this, and before we click on this, have a look at the address. It's 342RB, ends with 2 E's, okay? Now we're gonna go on the Solana Explorer and the signature, the address. So 342RBs, so this guy, this string is the address, and it's basically saying that this address now has a balance of 1 sol. So our airdrop worked. If we click on this address, now we go to explore.solana.com/address/this our address, and what is this actually? Is this a QR code? Wow, that's cool. The Google Chrome supports QR codes. It detects that this is a crypto address, and actually it shows you the QR code. I never noticed that. So I can see for this page that this address is the one that I had in the storage. I can see its balance in sol, and that's sort of it. It's also not executable because this address corresponds to an account, not a program. That's really important. As you go through the pathways, you'll hear more about this. So actually, let's do something. Let's be a little bit greedy and like fund and ask for more money. I'm going to ask once, and I'm going to ask twice, maybe even 4 times. Okay, I'm going to go back on here and I'm going to refresh. What I expect is that I'm going to get 3 or 4. I don't know how many times I did it exactly. I'm going to refresh. Boom, 4. So it's basically free money, but sort of free fake money. So here we go. We basically now have an account, and this account has money on it. So we're going to stop here. We don't want to do the whole thing, otherwise we would spoil all the fun for you guys. But basically, we'll just talk about what's coming next. If you keep going, we'll teach you how to get the balance for any account. Remember that blockchains are public, so for any public address, you can know how much tokens they have. Then we'll teach you how to transfer SOL from one account to another, super important. Then that will be the end of like the pure UI JavaScript side. The steps after that will be more on the smart contract. So that's going to be a little bit harder, but also that's super important. We've written a very simple contract. We'll explain. You won't have to write it. We'll just explain what it does. We'll teach you how to use the CLI, which means command line interface, on your terminal to actually deploy the program, to actually compile it, to deploy it. Then we'll create storage for the program because the program actually has some state and it will be stored on an account. And then we'll request data from the program, and then we'll do the opposite, which is we'll write to the state, to the public state, which is hosted on the blockchain, and then we'll sort of complete this circle of you have a little client-side application written in JavaScript, which you can deploy and that anybody can interact with, and then you have a smart contract, which is running on every node of the Solana blockchain, and then we'll make them communicate. And we'll see that we can very easily write to the blockchain and read from the blockchain. So that sort of concludes this little demo of the pathway, the first 3 steps, and then the last 6 are up to you guys. Do we have any questions? I'm going to close a bunch of tabs.
Yeah, so looking at the question log right now, Guillaume, are you familiar with any companies that might be hiring specifically for Solana devs, or any projects that might need help, open source or DAO based?
I'm not. This is more of a question for the Solana team. I don't know if there's any of them right now, but there's a hackathon going on right now. So my guess is you guys should be able to probably just ask them on Discord if they can point you to any company that's like actively hiring. But here's my recommendation would be, before like doing this, go on their GitHub and look at any open source project they have and try and get involved. The best way to do this is just, for example, go on like Metaplex. So if you Google like Solana Metaplex or Solana Anchor or Solana dApp Scaffold, you're going to be able to find their GitHub, their open source projects, and look at the issues and try and fix an issue. That's the best way to get involved. And who knows, maybe, you know, that's going to lend you a job at Solana. So I think that's probably the best way to do it.
Super helpful. I think the next question is it recommended to set up a node or a cluster on the local dev machine to allow for testing or debugging the program, the smart contract?
Is it recommended to set up a node cluster on the local dev machine? I think you definitely can. It's going to allow you to be able to compile it locally and get, you know, and interact with it locally. You can do it on the DevNet directly. The DevNet is sort of made for this. So I'd say try both. Like the setting up a local cluster is going to be a little bit harder, but it's going to be more gratifying. You'll be able to look like sort of inside, you know, the belly of the beast. DevNet will probably give you access to more tooling. So it's really up to you. It depends sort of how much you want to, how deep you want to go.
Yeah, I'll second that. And I think also, having done a couple of these myself recently, I think if you spend more than an hour trying to set it up and it's not running, just use the DevNet.
Yeah, that's a good recommendation.
Beating your head against the keyboard if you don't have to.
Yeah,
just get the build. Let's see. That's it, I think, for the questions. Although I think somebody's asking whether or not this will be on YouTube. I think it will be. I think this will be posted.
Yeah, my guess is it will. I'm pretty sure it will. Double check. Just maybe come back here after, and yeah, there will be some information.
Yeah, check this out. This is a good question. So this is a great like foundational question. What's the story with testnet? It sounds like most teams go from dev to mainnet directly.
So that's actually a question I don't have the answer to. I'm not sure if someone else on the forum or the chat has the answer. I've noticed that some protocols actually have a devnet. Some protocols only have a testnet. Some have both, and I'm actually not really sure. I believe testnet is for stress test validators. Yeah, maybe actually, I don't know if devnets have like validators. I'm actually not sure. Testnet is, I'm reading the answers because some people seem to have this knowledge that I don't. Testnet is for testing new features, I think. So then what would the DevNet be? Because I guess you could work against the DevNet to also test new features. I don't know if, I know actually we don't have Chase here. I don't know if Ryan has an answer to this, but I'm actually not sure. Testnet is just for testing new features. Actually, let's check. We have a little bit of time, so let's testnet, DevNet, Solana clusters. Let me share my screen again. Let's actually learn all together. Okay.
Yeah, so I can tune in a
yeah, go
little
ahead.
bit.
Beautiful.
And also the docs here what do help. You know, DevNet, testnet, and mainnet are three different clusters that have different personalities, I suppose. You know, you obviously have way different behavior on the mainnet cluster compared to DevNet. And so testnet is kind of the intermediary step to test your code and program an app for an environment that is more similar to the actual mainnet. As the clusters behave very differently, the skip rate is different, how to handle transaction erroring is different. And so I think you might have said this, testnet is just sort of the step above DevNet that is actually, you know, mostly focused on just contract programming and really understanding how to get your logic correct. And testnet is more prepping for that deployment.
So let me suggest maybe an analogy, because I think a lot of people here are from Web 2 and I think they know what staging is. So my understanding would be that DevNet would be more like a testing environment where you can really just break things. It's totally fine. It's a good place to just like force push, whatever. Staging is more like what we call test nets in terms of clusters. And by the way, cluster is probably an analogy to environments, again, in Dev2 world. Staging would be like testnet, which is the goal is to replicate as much as possible the environment of production in terms of like in Web2, it would be like database setup and, you know, maybe you would have like Redis running or like it would sort of have the same architecture, the same services, and it would mirror production, which in this case is mainnet. So does that sort of this staging analogy make sense to you? Cool, awesome. Yeah, so I think that's probably a good answer. Hope that's satisfying.
Yeah, you want to talk a little bit about Data Hub for a second? I think
yeah,
we sort of went over that really fast at the beginning on the setup, but it might be good to kind of dive into that a little bit and how they can leverage it to build on it.
Yeah, so Data Hub is another product. So we've talked about Figment, which is a company, and Learn is one of the products of the company Figment. And we have another product, which is called Data Hub. And Data Hub is basically giving you access to nodes that are on the Solana blockchain with a bunch of guarantees and some services like analytics, monitoring, just SLAs. That means, you know, uptime. And so you can basically use us as a proxy to talk to the Solana network. And our nodes are like part of the network. They actually stake Sol tokens, etc. So you can sign up on, I think, datahub.figment.io. And there's a free tier, which has a limit in terms of requests. I'm not sure what the limit is, but my guess is if you reach that limit, it's probably a great sign, means you've built like an awesome dApp and people are using it. And in so for those who were there in the first step of the pathway, the connection step, we wrote something like const URL equals new connection with a capital C, which is like the class, the JavaScript class. And then we passed the node URL. You can pass either the Solana node, which is reachable at like api.devnet.solana, or you can use Data Hub as sort of a proxy or intermediary. And so if you go, I'm going to share my screen again real quick, because if you go in this code here, you can see that we have a function called getSafeURL. And you can basically see that we can either point you to the DevNet, or we point you to the Solana URL of Data Hub. So if I then command click on this, I'm redirected here, and you can see that depending on the network and the protocol, you will go to like a Data Hub Solana mainnet RPC URL. So if you go in env, I'm doing this live. If you go in your env file, you'll see that you have Solana environment variable And so you have a mainnet RPC, which is Data Hub's way of accessing the mainnet of Solana through RPC, the mainnet of Solana through WebSockets, or the same guys, but for DevNet. Okay, and so I don't know if I'm logged in on Data Hub. Okay, I should have this. Okay, so this is what Data Hub looks like. You would go on Solana, and then you have a tour. We're going to skip it. You have your API key here, and then you have all the different URLs that you need to be able to access Solana through Data Hub. Does that answer a little bit the question of what Data Hub is? I'm going to go back in the chat. What is Data Hub?
Yeah,
wait, when was this?
This just came up, but I think that was a good overview. And I think if anybody has more specific questions on Data Hub, feel free to pop them in. But I think that was a really good overview, Guillaume. Do you want to mention how? Sorry, go ahead.
No, we also have a Discord, which at the end we'll give you a bunch of links. But I keep like sharing my screen, and maybe I should keep sharing it once and for all. If you go on learn.figment.io, which is the homepage that I showed earlier, where you have access to all the protocols, all the tutorials, and everything. There's a Discord link here. So check this out. And if you have any questions, once the stream is over, if you have any questions about Figment specific products, either Learn, a Pathway, or Data Hub, come in our Discord and ask us. If you have any questions about Solana, go on their Discord, or we can redirect you or answer any questions. But this Discord has like 3,000 developers right now, like I think 400 like actively connected. So you'll get answers to all the questions you have.
Nice. That's exactly where I was going to go.
Cool. And if you, yeah, go ahead then.
Well, I was going to say, do you want to share with them how they might be able to help out, extend these things?
Yep. So read my mind. So next to Discord, you have a little tab called Contests. We're going to click on Contests, and we're going to explain a little bit what's going on here. So, well, actually, before we explain what this is, we are going to show some part of Figment Learn that we haven't shown yet, which is our tutorials. All those tutorials have been written by community, not by us, but by developers who have earned tokens for writing on Solana, on Avalanche, Celo, Secret, Tezos, etc. So let's say if you want to, you can like browse all of those. There's like topics. You can like search for technology if you want to learn for like topics, tutorials about React for let's say either maybe Polygon and like Avalanche and Celo. If like you're interested in, React and you want to learn about those three, boom, here you go. You can figure out how to build a social media dApp on Polygon, how to create a decentralized exchange on Avalanche, etc. And we have maybe like 70 or 80 tutorials. And to give you guys an idea, each of those, we paid for each of those, we rewarded developers between $300 and like $700 in native tokens for all of those. So if a month ago you contributed on Solana by writing a tutorial and we gave you $500 in SOL, this would probably be worth like 200 or 300, 2,000 or 3,000. It's so crazy that I can't even like say it properly. If you basically made $500 writing a tutorial on Solana, now this could be worth $2,500 or $3,000. So, I mean, this is one of the greatest thing about Web3 is that like, we're not making any money from this. Figment and Solana are not making money from this. Developers are writing and sharing knowledge and writing tutorials about what they learn, and they're rewarded in tokens. And as the network gets more adoption, their tokens become more valuable, which is completely different than any Web2 incentive schemes. Like if you wrote something for like Codecademy or like Udemy, right? You would actually get like dollars. And if the technology underlying, like you write about a React, well, you don't have any React tokens. Here you can have SOL tokens. So you can basically create this flywheel. You can write tutorials for other developers to learn about Solana, create dApps, generate adoption, generate traffic, and increase the value of the SOL you earned by initially creating this those tutorials. So the reason why I'm like sort of explaining and really like trying to get you guys excited about those incentives is because we have a contest for writing the best tutorials for Solana. And we have 3 categories. I think we're starting today. So literally right now, it's official. I'm just, I'm officially launching the Solana tutorial contest, and it's ending at the end of the month, on the last day of the month. And we're distributing $15,000 in Sol, which one day will be worth like $1 million, basically. And there are 3 categories, and for each of the 3 categories, there will be 3 winners. And they each sort of like go, turn up the level of technicality from the previous one. So the first one is explaining Solana's innovations without any technical jargon, or with as little technical jargon as possible. This is for all you guys learners who like to explain things with simple words and are a bit tired, like us, of all those like blockchain explanations that are like very indulgent in jargon, and saying like high throughput and like scalable and permissionless and all those words that don't resonate with people who haven't been in Web3 for a long time. So we're looking for people who can explain Solana to your uncle who doesn't know about blockchain, to your friend who works in tech but doesn't know, who read an article about Web3 and it's a little bit confused and intimidated, because a lot of people are intimidated. Feel free to use visual drawings, illustrations, animations. If you want to have an idea also of the tone that we're looking for, click on this thread, which is a thread that Daniel and I wrote about the graph. And we sort of try and explain the graph without any jargon. So a little plug, read this. This will give you a really good idea of sort of what we're looking for. So this is the first category. The second category is building an explorer. So something similar to Explorer.Solana, well, obviously not as designed and not with the same features, but, and that's the condition, using the dApp scaffold. The dApp scaffold is sort of, to Solana, what the Create React app framework, or I guess boilerplate scaffold are sort of synonyms here. So it's to Solana what the Create React app was to React. You go on GitHub, you clone it, you run yarn dev, and boom, here you go. You have like basically a working front end that connects to Solana. And the goal here is to create a clone of the Solana Explorer. It's super simple, using the scaffold, and build a tutorial for this to explain how you've done it. And the third category, a little bit more advanced, although I said beginner, is trying to use the Anchor framework. I should probably rename this framework. Explain to other Solana devs how to use the Anchor framework. I think from what I've understood, 90% of the developers who are working on Solana right now are using Anchor to build those dApps. It has a front end. It has utilities for writing smart contracts, for deploying, for compiling and deploying them. We've linked to the docs, to the project GitHub. And what we want you guys to do is to build a blog platform. Super simple. Again, don't like overcomplicate it. The goal is to make an end-to-end blog platform. So you arrive, you log in, you write a bunch of stuff in a text editor, you save it, it gets saved in a decentralized storage, and then it's shown on the UI. The simplest blog platform you can, using Anchor and writing a tutorial around it. If you also want to make a video, that will probably buy you some bonus points. And we are being super generous with the rewards. We're giving, as of today, we should probably actually write this, as of today, $25,000 in Sol, and $1,500 for the second, and $1,000 for the price. So in total, we're distributing 15 grand of Solana tokens. And there's a bunch of stuff to participate. And again, if you have any questions on this, you can come on Discord. And we're officially launching this today. And again, just to reiterate, it's until the end of the month, September 30th. I should probably bold this. Any questions on Twitch around this?
Nothing on Twitch, but I bet a lot of people out there are thinking about, Figment's an awesome company. They're thinking, I want to go build infrastructure. I want to go build indexers. I want to go build learning stuff for blockchain, for Web3. Where should they go?
Where should they go? That's a great question. Do you have the link? Because I don't have it anymore.
Yeah, I'll drop it in.
You send me drop it in the Twitch. So we're a Web3 company. We are completely distributed. I'm in New York, Daniel's in Houston. We work with people in India, in Canada, in Poland. Like we're basically a completely remote company. We have openings for, Yash, perfect. Yash, who's our DevRel, posted. Yash, actually, if you can hear me, can you post the jobs link if anybody's interested in learning more about Figment? We have openings for developers. We have openings for protocol analysts. In the developer category, we have full stack, we have smart contract developers, we have a bunch of stuff. So check it out. If you love working on Solana and you want to keep like building the open infrastructure of Web3, come and work with us. Anything else?
We're good.
What else?
We can wrap.
Any questions? We're good to wrap. What is the live conference about? Cool. If you guys have any questions, again, as we said, we dropped the Discord link. It's the best place to come and reach out to me, to Yash, and to Daniel and all the other people at Figment.
Wonderful.
And Ryan is back.
Yeah, thank you both so much for joining. Really appreciate you hopping on the stream. It was great to have you. And yeah, like they said, join their Discord, check out the great tutorials that they've built, and we'll see you all next time.
Cool. Thanks, Ryan. Thanks for having us. Bye.
Thanks.